Hi, good afternoon, guys. I'm here to talk about remote working within Cavendish Professionals, and I'm joined by one of our colleagues here, Michal, who is one of our remote workers within recruitment, who's based in Poland. So he's flown over for a couple of days to join us here in Manchester. We're gonna talk a little bit about that, understand sort of experiences and how I felt about it, how Michal has felt about it, but also how it sort of how you engage with a new business, you know, when you start with them in a remote working capacity, as opposed to coming in and meeting everyone in the office, etc. Michal has been with us for just over a year now, and he started fully remote. First time I met Michal was a few weeks ago when we did our trip to Poland, which we've got some great content on that you've probably seen already. And this is the second time that I'm meeting him today. Michal, nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here.
Brilliant. How are you enjoying Manchester?
It's really nice. It's really nice. I like the architecture. It's kind of a mix of old buildings and new stuff, like new architecture. So it's really nice.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. So yeah, Michal. So I think let's start by talking a little bit about your experience. Yeah, your job when you first joined Cavendish, was that your first experience of working remotely?
No, actually, like my first experience was 2 years ago when I worked at Groupon, and during the pandemic we had to switch from the on-site work to remote. So I already had some experience working from home, right? So it was like a continuation, right, of that.
Okay, and then with Groupon at that time, was it sort of hybrid, or were you sort of started in the office and then moved to fully remote after that?
So we worked at office, but then we moved fully remote when the COVID hit, right? Basically, so it was fully remote.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And how do you find working remotely? You know, to tell us a little bit about your experience, pros and cons behind it, etc.
Yeah, so for me it was fine, right? Like obviously initially I felt a bit weird, I would say.
Yeah.
Because there is this thing with trust, right? Like if people know that you do your work right. But I got used to this, right? I actually appreciated the fact that I didn't need to commute to work.
Okay.
Like I didn't waste 2 hours of my time, right, to get to office.
That's a big benefit, isn't it?
Yeah, that was really nice. But what I was missing was actually the face-to-face meeting with people, right? The video is not the same. Right?
Yeah,
like
of course, yeah.
Feed, so yeah.
Yeah, and then I suppose the social side comes into it as well. Would you say?
Yeah, because like working remotely, you have to call your colleagues, right, on the phone, for example, right. In the office, they are sitting next to you, right? So it's better, right? It's more natural, I would say, right?
I think from my experience as well, obviously, we weren't a remote sort of company, before COVID started, and obviously, like a lot of companies, COVID has kind of pushed certain industries, certain companies into considering remote working. So it sounded like the dream come true for me, working for the company I love, and also being able to work remotely. It was, initially the idea was definitely much more attractive to me than what the reality was to begin with, because you're dealing with a situation where you kind of find out a lot about yourself as well. Like I'm definitely a people person. I thrive off the energy of people around me and stuff like that, so that makes a big difference to me. And I didn't realize how much I am that type of person until I was...
You lost it, basically, when you appreciate it when you lose it, right?
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it was gone completely. So it was, again, the first few weeks were great. I tried to get into a routine, etc. And then it started to get to a point where, you miss that sort of social interaction, being based in the city as well. A lot of people that live in quite big cities don't generally have their friends, next door to them or down the road. Friends are scattered across the city. So the city, or going into central, as we would generally call it, is kind of where you do your socializing and where you do your meeting, So there was the social aspect of not being able to come into the city very often, and then you don't see your friends as much either because you're not meeting people for lunch after, or dinner after work, or a few drinks after work as well. So it did take a bit of time for me to sort of adapt to that, and now obviously we've moved more to sort of a hybrid kind of setup. I think the balance fits me quite perfectly. I get to have certain days at home and be available more for the family and have dinner with my children and stuff like that, which you didn't really get much of when you're working in recruitment and going into the city 5 days a week. So that was really important. But then because we have that hybrid role now, I still get to sort of arrange my social life around the days that I'm in office. So that's made a big difference to me. What I'd be quite interested to talk about today as well is the onboarding side of things. So joining a new company and then trying to build relationships with your team remotely. How was that experience for you? Maybe we can focus on you joining Cavendish.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a challenge, right? Obviously, because again, remote is not the same as face-to-face, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, when you schedule some sort of training, some sort of catching up, right? It's not the same, obviously. With you guys, it went smoothly, right? I didn't feel. Because for me, recruitment started with Cavendish, right? I joined, before this I did sales, right?
Yeah.
So for me, this was new. And even though it went smoothly, right? I didn't feel this stress that you get that, maybe I don't know something very well, right? I have a lack of knowledge, right? But here it went, really well. So for me, it depends on the company approach, right? I would say. Yeah.
No, very true, very true. And I thought what was quite interesting about it is, again, until a few weeks ago when we met you in Poland, it was very much team calls, Google Meet calls, phone calls, etc. But meeting you in Poland and meeting some of the other team members out there, it felt like I knew you a little bit. I would go as far to say, though, I found out so much more about you in 3 days in Poland than I did, in the last year that I've been working with you remotely, in that sense, because you get that time to socialize, but also to interact and get to know you a bit more, what you like to do outside of work and stuff like that, So I think from when you look at how we approach onboarding new people in a remote working capacity, I think we will obviously try to continue having those visits and get you guys over to the UK more often. I think that's very, very much important. But also to try and arrange maybe some social online events that we do a bit more, so we can get to know each other a little bit more as well. Before and it doesn't take meeting in order to sort of discover a bit more about you.